Morning, folks. When was the last time someone asked you a difficult question? I'll give you a minute to think about it while I tell you one I remember when I was young. Someone asked me, can God create a stone that's so big he can't pick it up? Think about that a little bit. Turn to your neighbor quickly and tell them, what is a challenging question you've faced recently? Great. I love to make you uncomfortable. It's what I do. On a serious note, not long ago, a couple of years ago, someone asked me this question. They phoned me. They said that my wife is in hospital, busy dying. She's pregnant with a baby, and the doctors want me to choose to either save my wife by taking the baby out of her, or by leaving the baby inside of her, risking the fact that his wife would die. Some of us know this story. Angel and Gailey, they're in our congregation, not here today, but just an incredible miracle story of little Angelica, that, according to the doctor's advice, would or should never have been born. And listen, we love doctors around here. We love medicine around here. But in this particular situation, their advice was to abort the baby so that the wife might live. But by God's amazing grace and miraculous power, both of them live today. That's awesome. That's going back a few years. You can listen to that story. We've got that on our website, Angelica's story. But I remember that moment when he phoned me. He says, Greg, what do you think? What do I do? Much of life is quite complicated, right? We have difficult questions that we face every day. And so I'd like to introduce you to Life Matters today, which is our new series that looks at the everyday things of life that are often quite complex and throw up difficult questions, like what is right, what is wrong, what about the actions of other people, and how they affect us. And I'm hoping that over these next 6 or 7 weeks, we're going to find some helpful truth on the matters of life, because your life matters. And I want us to get this. Friends, your life really matters. You know, if we look through history, if we look through the pages of history, we see some amazing movements, some incredible things that really changed the world. There are some things that you can look back at, even here in this nation. If we just talk about spiritual things, revivals and stuff like that happened here, not far from where we meet today, that has radically changed the world, that has impacted the world. But if we do some deeper research, typically those movements, they were led by individuals. They were made up by individuals. Much of the change that happens in the world comes from people that decide, I'm going to make a difference. It's typically not a big room full of people, 100 people that decide, and then it's individuals, you and I. Friends, that same potential is in the room here today. The potential to change your world and to change the world is here today. Your life really matters, and it can really count. Okay, there's potential here, maybe for a big change, but maybe for a small change. When we talk about spiritual things, and we love to talk about spiritual things around here, the changes that we are a part of and make, they have eternal value. Okay, they might seem small, they might seem like a little thing that we've done, but in the light of eternity, they're an incredible thing. Okay, and you and I, we have that potential. The things that we give our lives to, the things that we live for, they really matter. Our lives really matter. And your life really matters to God. Around here, we believe that God has intimately created each and every one of us. We spoke about this so much already this morning. I love when the Holy Spirit does what He always do. He speaks through us. You know, typically when we have these services, let me just give you behind the scenes, we don't all get together, okay, what are you going to say? What are you going to say? How are we going to make sure this all comes? We arrive and the Holy Spirit speaks through us, and He always brings things together. And much of what we've heard already this morning is about God's intimate love for each and every one of us. And the Bible speaks so much about that He knitted us together, and that He knows the hair on your head, and that He has plans for you, and that He thinks about you. The scripture says that who am I that you are mindful of me? Can you imagine that God's mind is full of you? Say that. Me, say me. God's mind is full of me. That's what mindful means. That's incredible, right? Your life really matters to Him. In fact, your life matters so much to Him that He gave Himself for you, that He came after you, that He didn't want to live without you. And we'll talk about that some more in a few minutes. But I want us to get this picture that our lives really matter, and what we do with our lives and what we give our lives to, they really matter. But the starting point is understanding that our lives matter to God, that we matter to Him, and that He has set us up for success. I don't know if you feel successful this morning. I don't know if you feel like the world is against you. I don't know what you came in here with today, but I promise you that God is for you. I love what Katie said. I promise you because the Bible says so. I promise you because the Bible says so. He's for you. And He wants to prosper you. Now, you might be here today and you wouldn't consider yourself a believer or a follower of Jesus. And let me just say you're so welcome here. I'm hoping that the truth that we wrestle with here today and over these next few weeks is going to be particularly relevant to you as well. Okay, whether you're a Christian or not, that you can wrestle with some of these truths, apply them to your life, and they will also be helpful to you. But I'm also hoping that you will have some experience of a true and living God. That was in my reading this morning. I'm reading Thessalonians at the moment. I don't know how you read your Bible, but I suggest reading your Bible systematically. I love that. Just start somewhere and keep reading. Just read a few verses every day. This morning I was reading about Paul writing to the Thessalonians and say that you had turned your lives from idols to the true and living God. I was just like, wow, Lord, that's who we worship. We worship a true and living God. I don't know about you, but I've experienced His living around me today, and I'm hoping you get some of that. But your life matters to Him, whether you believe in Him or not. Let me just say that, and I'm hoping you hear His heart and you feel His heart. Here's some of the things we want to talk about over the next couple of weeks. We're going to talk today about marriage. Any marrieds in the house? Any married people in the house here today? How's your marriage going? Let me not put you on the spot. Listen, this is going to be relevant to you if you're not married as well. I'm trusting that this is going to help you if you're not married. Next week, singles. Any singles here? Come on now. Don't be afraid. Okay, we're going to speak about that and get into some truth about that. I'm hoping, again, that this is going to be relevant. If you're married, this is going to be relevant to you as well, that we can learn. I'm trusting this is relevant to you as a Christian and to you if you're not a Christian. We're just hoping that God's really going to speak from His Word to us. We're going to speak about work. Kareem is going to preach a message on work for us on the 26th of May. You know that God has called you not just to pay the bills. There's more for you at your job that He has for you. We're going to talk about gender. That's an interesting one. It's quite a big topic at the moment. I want to encourage you, if you have questions about that, if you know people that have questions about that, 2nd of June, please bring them along to that. Trusting for real, strong, encouraging, helpful, biblical truth into the issue of gender. We're going to talk about money. Love talking about money. We're going to talk about parenting, fathering on Father's Day. So this is just some of the stuff that we want to wrestle with. I don't know if you know this, but there's lots of difficult questions about all of these topics. Today we want to wrestle a little bit, talk a little bit about love and marriage. Now, when I hear love and marriage, I think of an old TV show when I was growing up. That was quite bad. I don't encourage you to watch it. But I didn't hear Frank Sinatra. Okay? I just hear Al Bundy, who was a guy sitting on his couch. You can YouTube that. But there's going to be some encouraging stuff coming out of Love and Marriage today. Okay, don't relate that to the TV show. There's some difficult questions around love and marriage. Around marriage. Is marriage for everyone? Is there a special one for everyone? Has God given everyone a special someone? Is it for male and female? What about same-sex marriage? What do we do with that? What about divorce? If you're a Christian, that's a difficult question. What about divorce? What about remarriage? Is that okay? What about the things that Jesus said? He said some challenging stuff around those topics. What about cohabiting? Isn't marriage outdated? Isn't it old-fashioned? Isn't cohabiting better? Isn't it easier for us to see if we complement one another before we consider marriage? And why marry anyway? It just costs a lot of money. Okay, these are difficult, these are real questions, folks. And so we want to wrestle with this, and we want to see really what Jesus has to say about these things. Now, whether you believe in him or not, most people agree that Jesus was a good man and a great teacher. Of course, around here we believe that he was God, and that he is God, and that he is here with us, and his words are life-changing. So if you have a Bible, please open in Matthew chapter 19. Matthew chapter 19. By the way, my wife and I celebrated 11 years of marriage on Friday. I'm always tempted to make a joke here. But I'm growing, so I'm going to resist. Matthew 19, we're going to read verse 3, from verse 3 to verse 9. Pharisees, I always like to introduce the Pharisees. Sometimes they get a bad rap. You know, we think they're the bad guys in the Bible. They sort of are, but they had good intentions as well. Not all of them were out to be evil. They just didn't have a correct understanding. And later, a lot of the Pharisees did become believers as well. But the Pharisees, they were really the religious elite. Okay, they were those that knew what religion was all about. And we have some of those people around today as well. Interesting, we had a conversation with a young person yesterday, talking about him inviting his friends to come to church. And he said, no, he's not religious. He doesn't want to come to church. And we were like trying to say, well, we're not religious either. We're trying not to be. Typically, religion we associate with a habitual routine, things you do over and over, where we like to think of faith and of Christianity as relationship rather than religion. Of course, the world associates that with religion. The Pharisees were the religious elite. They loved the habitual routine. They loved the rules. They loved the laws. And they're trying to trip Jesus up here, really, when they come and ask him a question on marriage and divorce. So, verse 3, the Pharisees came to Jesus, to him, and tested him by asking, is it lawful to divorce one's wife for any cause? He answered, have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female? And said, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife. And the two shall become one flesh. So there are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not man separate. They said to him, why then did Moses command one to give a certificate of divorce? Moses was an Old Testament prophet. And to send her away, send the wife away. He said to them, because of your hardness of heart, Moses allowed you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning, it was not so. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another commits adultery. Some challenging words, some strong, difficult words in there. But Jesus, what he is doing is he's quoting their version of the scripture when he's answering this question. He's quoting from Genesis chapter 1, really, when he's answering this question, which for them, their Bible was the law, the prophets, the Psalms, and part of that was this creation account of God creating the world. And he speaks of male and female there. In fact, on the next slide, we can read this in Genesis chapter 1. It says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him male and female. Interesting that God creates male and female in his image. God blessed them. God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. In fact, if we go and read that whole creation account, we see that God is creating on separate days, different days. He's creating different things. And he says it is good, right? He creates light and darkness, or he creates light, and he says it's good. And he separates the waters, and there's land, and he says it's good. And he creates plants, and he says it's good. And he creates animals, and he says it's good. He creates man, and he says it's good. And then all of a sudden, we find a not good. What is the not good? Not good for man to be alone. Okay, that's all of a sudden there's a change in a rhythm, change in the tempo there. And he creates a woman, okay, a woe man, because that's what Adam said when he saw the woman. And then God said, it is very good. And so here's the one simple point that I hope we walk away with today, if you get nothing else, and that is that marriage is good. Marriage is good. Jesus reveals that as good. He says, listen, what God has put together, let not man separate. Because it's a good thing. There's a reason. It's not good for man to be alone, but it's good for them to be together. He says that as everything is created, it's good, it's good, it's good. He creates man and woman, puts them together. It's very good. Marriage is good. There's lots of benefits to marriage. Now, listen, again, if you're single here today, this is going to help you. And we're going to talk about you specifically as well next week, so don't feel left out here. But we want to talk a little bit about some of the benefits, understand some of why is marriage good, what's so good about marriage, and how can all of us, single or married, young or old, benefit from this picture of marriage. Because actually, marriage is about a lot more than just marriage. Are you still with me? Okay, number one, marriage is good for marrieds, for those in marriage. God's been speaking to me so much about this one particular relationship. You know, there's lots of significant relationships in the Bible. So many ones that really stand out. But one of the most significant is that of friendship. Jesus said, greater love has no one, we're talking about love today, than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends. John 15, he goes on to say that I no longer call you servants, I call you friends. And there's this powerful revelation of friendship. Now, the beauty of this is that all of us can have friends, good friends, lifelong friends, friends that are in covenant, that walk together, whether you're married or not. And after 11 years of marriage, I feel like I'm just getting started. Okay, I feel like I'm just warming up. But one thing I've learned is the most valuable thing in our marriage is the friendship. It's the thing that I appreciate more than most. Now, I know most single people think there's something else that is more valuable in marriage. Any young kids here in the hall today? Because I'm going to say sex at some point, okay? Just be ready for that. But the friendship is really the thing that we have come to value and that God values. And by the way, is accessible to everyone, whether you're married or not. But the thing about a marriage friendship is that it's a covenant that's supposed to keep you together for life. Scripture says, Jesus said, what God has joined together, let not man separate. That was his intention, that this friendship that have brought us together should go the distance. And let me just say there, by the way, there's a 4 times on there. Married couples are 4 times more likely to stay together than cohabiting couples. This is just based on some research. You can do some research. The Marriage Foundation here in the UK, excellent. So many good statistics on marriage, cohabitation, children, all of that. But your friendship, your lifelong friendship has got 4 times more chance of surviving if you're married as opposed to just living together. Okay? Second one is that being in this friendship, being in this marriage, lifelong marriage, helps you grow, helps your faith grow. It helps you become a better person. It shapes your character. Now, this is not always easy, but having someone who's always by your side, that's noticing your strengths and your weaknesses, sometimes a pain in the backside. Sometimes I think, man, it would be easier to be alone. Because I feel like I'm hearing the same thing coming at me the whole time. I'm like, you're supposed to build me up. What is this? But God put us together not just so that we can be happy and lovey-dovey and be good friends, but that we shape one another. And again, this kind of friendship is available whether you're in marriage or not. The scripture says that iron sharpens iron. And it's talking about these deep friendship relationships. It says that there is a friend that will hurt you because they tell you the truth. Okay, and this is marriage friendship, folks. If you're in marriage, it's okay if your spouse hurts you. Okay, not physically. Just hear me right here. But that they speak truth to you because the truth hurts. Right? Annabelle, what do you think? But we got to speak the truth in love. So I'm just saying, having someone there in marriage, one of the great benefits of that is that they help shape your character. Whether you want to shape your character or not, that's one of the great benefits. Another benefit is that, and I'm speaking to some people here today that might be married to someone who doesn't have your faith in Jesus. Some of us are married with people that either have another faith, that belong to another religion, or they have no faith. And actually, Paul, the apostle, when he's writing his letter to the Corinthians, he speaks very specifically into those situations. He says, listen, if you're married to someone and they don't believe the same as you, don't separate from them, stay with them. Because staying with them is going to help them know Jesus. It's going to help them know the faith. It's not a guarantee, but it's going to help them. It's going to help in that situation. So if that's you, and if it's difficult for you, just know that God has a purpose even in that, and that the Holy Spirit can use you so powerfully to love them, to serve them, and that He will speak through you, okay? The last thing I want to say, some of the benefits of marriage, is physical as well. And that is true. Of course, God created sex for marriage. He created it to be good. He created it to be enjoyed. You know, there are different extremes on this, you know. There's the one extreme where some of the religious elite have decided that it's an evil thing. We've got to stay away from it. We've got to be celibate. We've never got to get married, you know. It's a bad thing. And the other extreme is, of course, what we see in our culture, that they're so obsessed with sexuality and it's perverse. It's everywhere. Every sort of sales technique has got to do, ultimately comes down to a sexual perversion. And of course, there's a healthy way for us. I don't want to take time here, but I just want to speak into this, that there is a healthy way for us. And you might look at me, if you're married for a long time, think you've only been married for 11 years, you just wait another 11 years. Okay, but I know guys much, much older than me, mentors of mine that have a very fulfilling, enjoyable sex life to this day. And God created that for us. And that's a benefit, okay? Again, it's not maybe the top benefit that singles think comes in marriage, but it certainly is one for us to be enjoyed in the marriage bed the way God created it. You still with me? A couple of top tips for keeping marriage good, very quickly. Number one, the fulfillment fallacy. Let me say something quickly about that. Again, if you're not a Christian, this is so helpful to you today. Ever see the movie Jerry Maguire? You complete me. Remember that line? Okay, that's nonsense. No person can complete you. They can complement you, but they cannot. Only our Creator, only God can complete us. Okay, Jesus said that God created them male and female. Okay, and He creates a whole person. You can't have a half a person and they become whole. It doesn't work like that, okay? God creates a whole person, and we have to find our fulfillment in God. If you're looking for fulfillment from your spouse, it's tough. Your spouse can never meet that standard. Okay, they can build you up and they can help you and they can love you, but they aren't going to complete you. Yeah. And if you're looking for that in marriage, I just want to give you some helpful truth. You're going to be disappointed. Okay, God, He completes you. He loves you. He wants to be, you're a whole person. Come on, you're a whole person. Okay, and marriage is about giving, by the way, more than receiving and taking. As we give, we receive. That's what love is. You know, lust is when I take at the expense of others. But love is when I give at the expense of self. That's what marriage really is. Okay, you want to get married? Listen, it's about dying to self. Let me just say that to you. Okay, the fulfillment fallacy. Number 2, growing closer. It says that God joined them. Jesus said God joined them together. Now, here's an interesting truth. How do I get closer to someone that God has joined me with? I get closer to the one who has joined me. As I get closer to God, as I get closer to Him, I also get closer to that person. Now, Arlene, why don't you come here for a second? Thank you. Kareem, why don't you just stand there for a second? Imagine I was married to Arlene. Arlene is very happily married to Henry. You face us, Kareem, okay? And I'm very happily married to Suzanne, but I can't see my wife around here. Now imagine God joins us together as we take steps toward God. Just take one step, Arlene, towards God. And again, another one towards God. You see that we get, if Arlene is doing this right, she should be going close to Kareem. Then we get closer together as well. You see the picture? Thank you, guys. That's awesome. As we go closer to Him, we get closer to one another. We're heading in the same direction. We have the same vision. We're called to the same purpose. That's such a helpful tip for you. If you are married, if you are a believer, if you are following Jesus, I guarantee you, as you grow closer to Him, you will grow closer to your spouse. Okay, last one, just quickly, is Jesus said that the husband should leave the mother and the father and hold fast. He should hold fast to his wife. And there's some things, some lessons that we need to learn to try and hold fast. And there's many, but let me just say very briefly that communication is probably the most helpful one. To learn to communicate. And here is the trick with communication. Communication is not about what actually came out of someone's mouth or what someone's body says. Okay? It is about the intent of what the person is trying to say. We trip up over the words that people use and we get offended so easily. And if you're married, I know you get offended. I got offended by my wife yesterday. Okay? And you, guess what? I was wrong. I don't know how that happened, but this one time I was wrong. And I apologized to her via text message. Okay? Husbands, there's a trick. I'm a work in progress. Where was I? Communication. The intent, the actual message, what the person is trying to say is way more important than what they've said, the words that they've used. And especially in marriage relationship, but also in our friendships, okay, we must trust, we must choose to trust that my friend has my best interest at heart. They don't want to hurt me. They don't want to break me down. And if that's what I receive, there's been something lost in translation. Now, sometimes we say stuff that we don't mean, and we do say hurtful things. But I'm saying, when we boil it down, I'm trusting that Suzanne, my wife, she has my best at heart. And when she says something that I don't hear like that, I'm like, whoa, wait. I heard you say this, but actually I think is this what you're trying to say? Do you hear what I'm saying? Communication is so powerful. Okay, second one. Marriage is good for marrieds. Marriage is good for kids. I'm going to speed this up. Marriage is good for kids. This is very interesting stuff here. By the way, family breakdown is much lower in marriage with married couples than it is with cohabiting people that are just living together. These are the statistics in the United Kingdom. Okay, not in America, in the United Kingdom. Married parents are 3 times less likely to separate by the time their kids are aged 3. So if you have a child, by the time they're 3, married people are 3 times less likely to separate. In fact, I think 27% of cohabiting couples separate by the time their kids are 3. First kid is 3. 9% of married couples separate by the time the kids are 3. Of all couples that are still together by the time their kids are age 15, 90% of them are married. Only 10% are cohabiting or living together. The chances of you staying together and benefiting the children much, much higher in marriage than it is with cohabiting. And by the way, family breakdown, or when cohabiting couples separate, when married people separate, is the biggest predictor of mental health challenges, issues in teenagers. That's a big deal, right? Now, the good news is if you did grow up in a house where there was separation, where there was family breakdown, You don't have to be that statistic. Okay, you don't have to be one that suffers from mental health. Okay, we heard this morning, Jesus, the one on the throne, says, behold, I make all things new. And man, that's what the Spirit is saying to you today. Irrespective of what has happened, okay, your past doesn't have to be your future. Because God has a future for you. So irrespective from where you've come from, and you don't have to repeat that pattern either. Okay, we can break that pattern. Amen. And if you're currently, all of us are affected by these separation, family breakdowns somehow. Whether it's our family, my brother just got divorced recently. Okay, some of us here have been divorced more than once. Some of us, we grew up in a family breakdown, separated home. All of this has affected us in some ways. The good news, and we'll talk about this more, is that that doesn't have to be what the world thinks it will be or what this predicts it to be. But God can change it. We have faith for that, right? Finally, marriage is good for everyone. Marriage is good for married people. Marriage is good for kids. But marriage is good for everyone. Jesus said that God created them male and female. When we look at that Genesis 1 account, it says that in His image, God created them. You see, when the male and the female come together in marriage, when they are joined, when they are complemented, we get a more comprehensive picture of the nature of God. That's not to say that I am not created in God's image. I am. But I'm a male. Okay, and my wife as a female also been created in God's image. And when the two of us come together, there is something that is revealed about the nature, the beautiful nature of God in the masculine and in the feminine, in the strong and in the sensitive, you know. There's something of God's nature that the world needs to see. And Jesus revealed this even further in Ephesians 5. He said that when I'm speaking about husbands loving your wives as Christ loved the church, I'm speaking of a great mystery. I'm really speaking, marriage is about Jesus and the church. That the church is referred to as the bride of Christ. And that actually marriage is saying something to the world about how Jesus feels about the church. Now, if you mess with my bride, I'm going to get upset. If you mess with Jesus' bride, He's going to get upset. Because He loves His bride, okay? And that's the way, this is the relationship of all the relationships that Jesus chose. This is the one that He chose to compare His feelings towards you. Is an intimate, passionate love. And marriage speaks of that the whole world will see, wow, those guys are so happily married together. Whoa, that's how Jesus sees me. That's how He views me. That's how His relationship with me, that's how it was intended. To be intimate, to be passionate, to be exciting, to be an adventure, to be a friendship. And as married people, we owe it to the world to invest as much as possible in our marriage, that everyone will see this is what Jesus has for everyone. This is how He wants to love you. This is a picture. It's a mystery, but it's a picture. Are you with me? I'm hoping that we see, folks, that marriage is so, so good. And that there's multiple benefits for those in it, but also for those not in it. All of us can benefit from this beautiful thing that God created. But what about some of these challenging questions? What about male and female? God created them male and female. What about male and male, female and female? We know, obviously, that that's becoming more and more common, that it's a thing that so many people are doing now, same-sex marriages, not just civil partnerships, but actual marriages. And we want to speak a little bit into that on the 2nd of June. So if these are some of your questions, please be here for that. But let me just say for now that the scripture talks about male and female joined together because they complement. There is a complement there. That's why we believe this is God's intent. Now, God has an intention, and then there's stuff that happens. But God's intent is for male and female to complement. We see that even biologically. Okay, we go together. We complement. What about divorce? What about remarriage? This is a big one for us. In a minute, I'm just going to ask a couple of our friends, John and Sam, to come share some of their story of divorce. But I just want to share a few principles on divorce, remarriage, especially if you're a Christian. Maybe if you're not a Christian, this doesn't apply, or you're not as concerned about this. But for Christians, this is a big question. Just hang on with that slide. Just wait before we go there. Before we just talk about this truth, I want to say we've got to be careful with rules, folks. We've got to be careful with trying to find a one-size-fits-all. You know, when Jesus encountered people, to the one he said, leave everything, come and follow me, walk with me. To another one, he said, no, you stay here, you tell your friends. Okay, and we've got to walk in relationship with him. We've got to be led by the Spirit, really. It becomes dangerous when we just have black and white rules. And in fact, that's what the law was. The law was to show us that we can't live like that. We need to live led by the Spirit. And that his laws are written on our hearts. We walk in relationship with him. Having said all of that, we can't just make up our own truth. We can't just do what we want and say, you know what, Jesus loves me, there's grace. Okay, we've got to live according to the truth that he has revealed. And so there's a tension for us. And I'm trusting that whatever you hear today, you hear that there's grace for you. That God has grace for you. Here's some principles that can help us. Marriage is good for life. This is Jesus' intention. This is God's intention. What God has put together, let not man separate. But there is a but. If both people are committed to it. If both people are committed through thick and thin, no matter what we face, unfaithfulness, sickness, death, all of these things, we're going to stick together. By the way, the best thing that you can be committed to for marriage for life is committed to being a learner. To learn to love well, to learn who your spouse is, to learn who they are, to learn what makes them tick, to learn to understand them. If you're committed to learning, man, I tell you what, the odds are in your favor. But of course, you cannot control someone else. If you're in a relationship with someone else or have been, it takes two to tango. And if one doesn't want to tango, it's out of our hands. That's the first thing for us to just think. God intended it for life, but of course it takes two people. The second, God never wanted divorce. Jesus said this. From the beginning, it was not so. This was not his intention. His intention wasn't, let's create marriage, and if something goes wrong, let's do divorce. No. That came later, because this is not his intention. But of course, folks, there's another but. Life happens. Stuff happens. Stuff goes wrong, you know. Of course, we all want to be living our best life, never get angry, never get upset, never lose our patience, be perfect parents, you know, give all our money away. We all want to be like that, but life happens. Okay, and we are a work in progress, and it's the same with marriage. Stuff happens. You know, I said my brother, he got divorced recently, and when I look at them, I thought, wow, you guys are perfect for each other. But life happened. Now, he's not a believer. He doesn't follow Jesus. And there's all sorts of interesting things, difficult things that come in there. But just because you follow Jesus doesn't mean you won't get divorced. That's unfortunately just the radical truth. And that many people here can attest to themselves. Here's some good news though for us. Romans 8:28 says that God is able to work all things together for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And this is the amazing thing about our true and living God, is that he takes all the broken pieces of the puzzle and he somehow puts something together that is beautiful. He somehow manages to take the mistakes of other people and my mistakes and my brokenness and my selfishness and my good intentions, and he pieces all those things together and he creates something amazing out of it. This is who he is, right? That's incredible. And so I don't know I don't know where you've been washed out, on what shore of life you've been washed out. But the good news is that whatever has happened, God can use it for your benefit. He can use it because he loves you. The last thing about this is, you know, there is life after divorce. Now, I don't want to talk about this too much, but I do want to say this because this is relevant. You know, some of us think, wow, what has happened? Have I lost it? Is there another chance for me? Is God angry at me? You know, there is life after divorce. But here's the key. As with every other part of life, Matthew 6:33, pursue first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added onto you. As we seek Him, as we follow Him, as we go after Him, He will add to us what we need. Now, you might be divorced and not get married again. You might be divorced and get married again. And there's all these questions about what Jesus said about adultery and what does that mean. To be honest with you, I don't know the full truth. What I know is as you pursue God, He will add to you what you need. Amen? I want to invite John and Sam up quickly to come and share with us just a little bit of their experience. Can we have that microphone, please, Kareem? We won't take time here. We're almost done. But this is a powerful testimony. Both John and Sam, let me just introduce us. Can we give them a hand, please? Some of us don't know this, but both of them, they were previously divorced and are obviously now married with children. So I wanted to just ask you guys briefly, when that divorce happened, what were some of the emotions and things you guys experienced, and how did God play into that?
Okay. It's some time ago now, but emotions were definitely anger, hurt, betrayal, a real sense of grief at what had happened. My first marriage, my ex-wife and I, we were both, leaders in the church, and sort of, it just wasn't hit me left-sided. I was totally blindsided by what happened, and so. Yeah, I think there's this real sense of just unbelief that this could actually be happening. It could be my reality. And from that went down a path of obviously having to really deal with these emotions with God. I mean, that was a very real thing, is having to just, wrestle with God through all the sort of questions of the whys and the hurts and all of that. But certainly that fear that you can latch on to, that, being a Christian, as what Greg's been preaching this morning, you have an idea of what marriage is. It's a lifelong covenant. And then when it sort of ends, I faced a very real thought of, that's my one shot. I've blown it. Circumstances led to it being blown. So... Am I answering this question?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. That's perfect.
Okay.
I mean, that's terrible that happened,
no,
but
yeah.
you're explaining it really well.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Do I go into what God's done?
No, I think let's do Sam,
okay,
how she experienced that.
A big thing for me was the shame, that I wanted to hide what had happened. And God really showed me that He didn't see me as someone that was divorced. He saw me as a daughter, that I was loved, and that there was a hope and a future for me. And that I wasn't Sam equal divorced. I was just Sam.
Wow. That's awesome, Sam. You can give it back to John. Thanks. Briefly, how did God work and bring things together? I know there's so much that you could say, and we should really take a whole message to do this, but...
I think, as I said, honesty with the emotions, with the fear, brought that to God, allowed Him to do what He needed to do, and He dealt with that issue, like similar to what Sam felt, that sort of label that you feel you're going to be stigmatized for the rest of your life. But He blows you away with His grace. He blew us away with His mercy and His kindness, and the lens that we judge ourselves by and that we judge others by. I mean, as I said, I grew up in a Christian home and surrounded by church people, and you can feel this unspoken judgment. But not from God, man. He was just so merciful, so gracious, and the way that He saw me, it radically changed my perspective on things. And then just His goodness. I mean, the goodness of God always comes to mind when I think of my life now and our marriage, and finding Sam and falling in love and sort of experiencing love that I didn't know that could actually experience. Like. First marriage, I guess I've got a comparison, but God is just incredible to have a love and a marriage like this that I never thought possible. And it only for me testifies to the goodness of God, His grace, His kindness, His abundance, His extreme lavishness toward us, toward His kids, and I think when we're able to come to Him openly and honestly and accept how he sees us. You know, it's a big thing. We've got to accept how he sees us. And then we can truly move forward into what he has for us, I think.
That's awesome, John. Thank you. Sam, just briefly, I think you mentioned that in your divorce you actually met Jesus. You became a believer. Do you want to just say something about that?
Yeah, well, I was actually invited to a Hillsong conference. Well, no, Hillsong United was coming to play, at Hillsong Church. And I didn't think that my life would be changed, but it was. And yeah, it was just an amazing encounter with God, just being able to be open and honest and vulnerable with him, and that there was no shame, like I've just said, that I could share my story and just talk to him about it, but also be open and honest with my family and my friends and the community of church that became my family here because my family was in South Africa. So that was very important. Yeah.
That's awesome. And of course today we see they have two beautiful boys, Finn and Silas, with a great destiny themselves, that's come out of these broken pieces, but God has somehow put this together and created something so beautiful. Thank you, guys. Let's give them a hand, please. Awesome, guys. Thank you. Let's stand together, please. We want to finish here with communion. I know we're almost out of time, but this is a big topic, and I know you guys have grace for me. I want to think of, as we respond, just some things as we come to the communion table, and in a second I'll introduce that. But this idea that you can become part of the bride. Marriage is a picture of Jesus and the church. And Jesus came after you. Jesus wants to be in relationship with you. That's what the cross was about. It was for the forgiveness of sin, that you might know him. And maybe today you want to take communion for the first time and say, Jesus, I want to become part of your bride. Maybe you're married here today and you want to surrender your marriage again to God. Bring your marriage again to God and just say, Lord, just make it as good as you want it to be. Make it better. And finally, you might not be married, but you can still benefit and maybe choose, how can I benefit from the marriages of those around me? And married couples, may we have grace for those that aren't married. Amen. Father, thank you so much for your truth, your helpful truth. Father, I pray for all of us here today, whether we're believers or not, whether we're married or not. God, I thank you that you love us, that you have encountered us, that you are alive, that you are true. And I speak into each of our situations, God, where we find ourselves today, that you are able to make it work for our good. I speak grace and hope to each one of us.